wife has passed away, and I know the board expresses their condolences to Boris and his family. Our thoughts are with you, Boris. We're here for you. We think about you, and God bless. Okay, do you have any additions, Lisa, to Margaret, to the agenda?
No.
No, there's no additions or changes to the agenda.
Okay.
Oh,
Okay.
let me rephrase that. We do have one item, new item for the board.
Can you hear Margaret, Jim? She's saying that there is a new item
Under
Okay.
new business.
under new business.
Okay. That's good. Okay. All right, disclosure of name, contribution. Does anybody have any disclosures?
Why is there feedback?
Any contributions they may have made to any candidates, cause, group, that within the jurisdiction of our board and canvassing?
Yeah, Jim, I looked back in November, I didn't see in the December minutes that I know there was a time when I had trouble being heard and checking in, and so I don't think it was reflected. In November, I did a 500, then another 500 to a group called Wind Red, and it was a Republican presidential.
Win red.
And just want to make sure that's in the record since I did not see it.
What was the name of that group?
It's called Wind Red,
Oh, Win Red.
yes.
Okay. Kevin, is that something that fits within our bylaws? What is it, an independent?
It was a presidential PAC.
Oh,
Right, it does, Jim. Thank you, Diane, for closing it.
I'm sorry, was there an amount on that?
500.
On both?
Two 500.
500.
Thank you.
1,000.
Thank you.
It was two 500 contributions.
You can hear the
Right.
feedback.
We're having a
There
very
is.
serious echo.
Right.
I don't know if someone needs to mute. I have a question because I thought that our disclosures require only that we disclose contributions to candidates who are, whose ballots are counted, or for whom we serve on the board of canvassers. And I don't believe we have a disclosure requirement for committees to support candidates that are not run by the candidates. So for example, if it's the Democratic Party or the Republican Party, obviously they support candidates who are on our ballot, but we are not required to disclose those unless we attend an event. And so I don't know whether Diane's contribution would be required to be disclosed if it's to an organization that supports a candidate but who's not affiliated with the candidate.
Yeah, you're right, David. I mean,
Kevin,
I have,
David, I stand corrected, you are correct.
yes.
It's only when you attend an event that is held by an organization like that, but not necessarily just a contribution to organizations that support particular candidates.
Diane, did you go to an event with either contribution? No?
So do I scratch, oh, sorry.
Online.
So do I scratch this off the record?
Yes. All right,
Mr.
David.
Mr.
I would
Karpinski?
agree with that.
Yeah, that's fine.
Thanks, Diane. Hearing nothing else? Lisa, do we have any public comments, or is anybody on the line that has a public comment?
No one has notified me in advance. At this point, if anyone is online and like to raise their hand or announce themselves, they can speak.
I know Senator Kagan wanted to make some remarks, but is she on yet? Okay. We'll get her when she comes on. Margaret?
Okay, yes, the announcements, the monthly statistics were posted and emailed to the board members at the beginning of the month. I've been asked to remind you that the State Ethics Commission requires your financial disclosure. That's due April 30th, 2021. We did receive a copy of the proclamation from the County Council, and the Montgomery County Board of Elections, with the assistance of the Department of Technology Services, receives the Election Assistance Commission Cleary Award for our SMS texting. Those are my basic announcements. Mr. President, should I go on to the director's report? Mr. President, you're muted.
Margaret, those would be good to put on our website to show the
Okay.
accolades we've had.
Yes, sir. They will be posted as part of our meetings. Mr. President, shall I go on to the director's report?
Yeah, sure.
Okay. Personnel, we are continuing to use temporaries in IT to continue to the post-election maintenance of the voting equipment, as well as perform the state inventory. The next item is the budget. I'm going to let Kara talk about the current budget, and then I will address the county executive's announcement today about the upcoming budget. Kara?
Yes. Okay, you all should have a copy of the budget spreadsheet. And let me just click up here. Most of our expenditures to date have been in personnel, and as you can see, we have spent most of our budget. We continue to get a few other chargebacks from other county departments. At the bottom, you'll see a note that shows that we have received funding from CARES and our private grant that reduced charges in overtime and seasonal temps, as well as a few other line items that has prevented us from already overspending our total budget. And one thing that I did want to point out to you all is our invoices from the state. We did receive our second quarter invoice in the amount of $1,648,159. And I believe that we provided you a detailed invoice. I'm sorry if you didn't receive it before today, I thought you had. And we do not have sufficient funds in operating to pay that invoice. SBE further provided an estimate of what we can expect from our third and fourth quarter invoice, which is expected to be an additional $1,477,623. And so if we can't even pay the second quarter invoice, we obviously don't have enough to pay our third and fourth quarter invoice. And as a reminder, the account code for SBE was funded at a level of $1,531,571,000. Yes, despite a projected billing that we received in January of 2020 to be $2,982,321 for all of FY21. And so what we're actually expecting for this year to be the total billing is around $3,872,937. And so where we are right now is we're in conversation with the Office of Management and Budget to request a lift of our budgetary constraints to spend beyond our operating budget so that we are able to pay those invoices from the state. And what they're doing is right now they're concentrating on the FY22 CE recommended budget and working with the county council to get that approved, and then they'll turn their attention to our needs.
I had a question. I didn't hear what you said. the state board was anticipating for the third and fourth quarters. What was the total for that?
So it was about 1.4 million. I'll give you the exact amount again. $1,477,623.
Thank you.
Okay. Going on to the county executive's budget for FY '22, which was released. The county executive recommended $8,300,356. In our discussion with the county executive, we did address this issue of the structural deficit because of the underfunding of the State Board of Elections. And we pointed out that we had submitted, as expected, the $3.4 million expected billing for FY '22, and pointed out that this created nearly a $2 million deficit immediately on July 1st of 2021. This is not only our county's concern, but it's also MACO, the Maryland Association of County Officials, as well as the Maryland Association of Election Officials, to increase the transparency of the billing process. And we also pointed out with the county executive that we are in the process. We have to replace the poll books. They were purchased in 2006. They're 15 years old. Janet can address during her IT presentation some of the issues. This is expected to cost $31 million statewide, and currently that will be billed back completely to the counties and the city. I believe that our conclusion with the county executive, that with the expected purchase of the new poll books, plus the impact of all of the various pieces of legislation that are currently in the Maryland General Assembly, that we would go back to him after the legislature adjourns and talk about some of the fiscal impact of legislation before it goes to the county council, or possibly at the beginning of the next fiscal year. I will submit to the board the presentation that the county executive sent over to the county council. I just received it this morning. I haven't even been able to see it, read through it, but yeah, I will forward it to the board members for your review. Are there any questions?
David has a question.
I do indeed. Margaret, you said that as it stands now, the poll book costs are, it sounded like what you said is that they're 100% to the local government and the state government is not paying any? Did I understand you correctly?
Yes. That you understand, you understand me correctly.
Is that possible? I thought that there was law that talked about the split of the expenses between the state and the counties?
Well, that is what Maryland Association of County Officials and Maryland Association of Election Officials is trying to nail down. Allison, do you want to jump in here?
I'm also here. This is Cheryl Kagan, and I'm sponsor of the bill if you have any questions and want me to answer. And I can give you today's update if you're interested.
Can you make the state to pay for all our bills?
Oh, I wish I had that kind of clout. I'm trying. So, Mr. Chairman, I'm happy to answer. I'm also happy to go back. You tell me.
Jim. You're muted, Jim.
Jim, you're muted.
Still muted. There you go.
The COVID shot, I have an excuse. Allison, why don't you were in the middle of something, finish that.
Well, I was just gonna, to David's question, it's been about the definition of a voting system. The 50-50 split has applied to things that the state considers to be a voting system, and the poll books have been defined to be outside of that definition.
which is one of the things that Senator Kagan's legislation would address.
Does that answer your question, David?
No, because the idea that the poll books are not part of a voting system is ludicrous. Perhaps Senator Kagan's legislation, which I don't remember what her legislation says, but clearly we can't have a voting system without a poll book, right? So the idea that it's not part of the voting system, to me, sounds ridiculous. That's one person's opinion. I don't know if that's a legal opinion, that's just an opinion.
What's the cost of that again? The poll books?
Right now, it's, you know, it can change because it's still in the RFP process, but we have been advised that the cost would be $31 million. Possibly, Mr. President, Senator Kagan might be able to shed some light on this, if you would allow her to speak.
Yeah, sure, Senator, go ahead. Welcome.
Oh, and now the senator is muted.
Yep, I'm unmuted. Are we good?
Yeah, did you hear what Margaret said?
I did. So first off, hi, for the record, Cheryl Kagan, very proud to be the senator for Gaithersburg and Rockville, and Vice Chair of Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs. So as some of you may know, Friday night, my committee spent hours, about 3.5 hours, working on election legislation. I have 3 bills. One should be up on final passage tomorrow, I think, or Wednesday, Senate floor, and that's about recount, including in Montgomery County with public financing. And Kathleen Boucher from the Intergovernmental Relations Committee office helped craft that and acquiring that through. So that has a special Montgomery County component. There are 2 other bills, and I'm going to do the Mako bill last. So the kitchen sink bill, as I called it, had 17 issues that I put all in one bill for my committee's consideration. As I knew, some chunk of it would fly and some chunk wouldn't. So what is still what is still in there are a bunch of issues, including everything from no phony drop-off boxes to simplifying ballot language, mandating a statewide curing process, using privacy sleeves, geographic accessibility of the drop-off boxes and of early voting center, increasing the number of early voting days from 8, which we had last year, to 10, which is the constitutional max. Starting to process but not tabulate 18 days early, which is 8 days before Election Day, which is the number that Mayo, the Maryland Association of Election Officials, requested. It also includes, hold on 2 secs. It also includes, to the degree possible, all candidates' names on a single page on the ballot marking devices. And we want to try to indicate where disabled voters are going to be able to have easiest access to early voting centers and precinct level reporting. So that's all in the kitchen sink. The one that Margaret was just referencing, or should I pause here, Mr. Chairman, in case there are questions on the first 2 bills before I go to Echo?
Mr. President, I'm sorry, this is Lisa. Can I just get reference to what House bill that first was?
That was Senate bill.
Senate bill?
It's not a House bill, it's a Senate bill.
Senate bill?
I'm going through.
831.
Thank you. I just need that for the record. Thank you.
Absolutely, sorry. I never remembered my bill numbers. So the Mako bill, Maryland Association of Counties, which is about accountability, cost sharing, transparency, was dead as of a couple of days ago because of the fiscal note. Now, to be clear, the fiscal note is exactly what you guys were talking about, which is shifting, making clear what the state should pay for and what the counties should pay for. And I think so there is currently uncodified language And so we want to make it official who pays for what. And that is part of what this bill will do. It mandates greater transparency in posting meeting materials and all that, which they have been really reluctant and not very responsive on doing. And it also requires ERIC voter registration updates on a more regular basis. We're looking at quarterly. I think we may end up with monthly even, to reassure people that our voter rolls are as accurate as possible. So the fiscal impact is what was threatening the viability of this bill. So while I personally think that the fact that we went from mailing ballots in the primary in last year's ballots, which was 2 mailings going out to the voters and then coming back with a ballot, then the governor changed it for the general election, so it was 4 mailings, twice as many, application out, application back, ballot back, and then he said, yeah, the counties should pay. And I thought it was his decision and the state should pay. So we were looking to put more on the state. I don't think the counties should have to pay for ERIC. I don't think counties should have to pay for the marketing campaign. I don't think there are issues that I think should be statewide that the county can amplify for us. And certainly ballot, the wireless routers, which I agree with in general, and then poll books are all part of the equation that we think the state to at the very least, we should get guarantees that it's not going to all be foisted on the counties. So as of today, as of 2 or 3 hours ago, that bill definitely now has new life. I don't want to speak, especially because it's in public section. I don't want to overstate my optimism, but I think there is reason to be optimistic that a chunk of this bill will move forward, but it is definitely still being crafted, and there will be amendments to what is currently filed. I see that Ryan Kirby, my chief of staff, just joined the meeting, so he is my point person on election administration on my 3 election bills. And Ryan, if you've got the MAKO bill for the record, I think that would help the note taker on staff.
It's SB 747.
Thank you. Again, I never remember my own bill numbers. So with that, I'm happy to take any questions, and it's always a joy to be with you.
Jim, may I make a comment and question? I guess my comment is that I agree with you, Senator, about the idea of the state making decisions and then forcing them upon the locals. But the example you gave is not the only one. I'm not aware, I don't know whether we had any input into the poll book decision. I mean, I think we would agree that there's a need for poll books, for new poll books. But, you know, we're just told the cost, and now we're being told the cost. Not only are we told the cost, we're being told we're going to pay the cost, 100%, without having, to my understanding, and maybe you know, staff or others can clarify for me. I'm not sure we have any say over it at all. Last I checked, I thought there was a revolution fought over the idea of being, you know, taxation without representation. And I'm not saying it's not a worthy expenditure, because I think that we need poll books that work. But I do think that the idea that it's being imposed upon us and we're being asked to pay for it, you know, and I don't have any idea whether $31 million is a good price or not. I mean, I really don't know.
So procurement is a big part of the MAKO bill also. So what has been happening is that the SBE staff has been making procurement decisions with no oversight whatsoever from the SBE board. We think that's not okay. So what my bill does currently, and we'll see whether this stays or is tweaked, is that the board would be notified of all procurement contracts, and for anything 50,000 and above, they would have to vote on it, debate, discuss, and vote on it, which I think is important. What happened with the wireless routers last year is that it was shoved into a big package of contracts and sent to the Board of Public Works, which is the governor, the comptroller, and the treasurer, and none of them had any information that it was in their package to discuss. And our state treasurer, Nancy Kopp, was among those that was not happy about that. So greater transparency for oversight, part of that would begin with the state board members voting on things. In terms of the cost share, my understanding is that currently the counties are paying 89% of a project for which you had no ability, as you just said, David, for which you had no input. And I think that is unreasonable, unfair, irresponsible, and whatever other adjectives. So at the very least, it should be 50-50, if not a statewide responsibility. But again, people freaked out a little bit about the fiscal note, the fiscal impact. The reality is, the only other people that would be paying for this are our counties, and that's an unfunded mandate and a burden on our 24 jurisdictions. So I think it's appropriate to have the state pay for it. There's more capacity there than there is in Dorchester County or even in Montgomery County. So yeah, so it's a fairness and fiscal oversight that I'm working on. So we'll see where it ends up. Having everyone reach out to their legislators matters, and especially, I mean, obviously I'm on board, so you guys are good, but to the degree that you know other legislators around the state or have colleagues or friends in other counties, please have them reach out to their senators and delegates to encourage reasonable cost sharing and transparency for election expenditures.
Thank you. Anybody else have any questions?
Do we know, does Mark have any information about whether, anything about the poll books? The features it has, how they were chosen, or anything along those lines?
Mr. Naaman, the poll books have not been chosen.
Start unless under Janet.
They have not chosen.
We are being briefed every so often. The personnel at the state who are handling the procurement, you know, just sort of keep us up to date in discussions with us. If I remember the timelines correctly, the submissions were all in. I believe that they are currently in the process of doing their analysis of the different vendors. And I want to say that they're looking to make a decision within a month or two.
Margaret, did you have anything to add on that?
No. Allison and Janet serve on the committee with regards to the working with the state board.
If you got anything, we can't hear it.
That's right.
Lisa, are you muted?
Margaret, muted?
Yes, it was. You are.
So
I have
while we're waiting
nothing.
on
Margaret has nothing further to add.
Okay. Let me just tell the last thing is, so the kitchen sink and the Mako bill are both in my committee, the Senate committee, Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs. Kitchen sink got out of my committee. We're going to tweak a couple of things in it, and hopefully then it will come to the floor. The Mako bill is cross-filed by my delegate, Julie Palaka. Someone is not muted, so I'm getting an echo. Okay, so still muted, still someone's not muted.
It's one of the lines in the boardroom.
There we go, thank you. So Delegate Julie Palaka is carrying the Mako bill in the House. That will be before Ways and Means, but the likelihood is that I will be moving them both in the Senate first, in Education, Health, and Environmental Affairs, EHE. And that's where the kitchen sink came out of as well. There is no House cross-file to the kitchen sink, and so we will be moving this ourselves, and then it will go to the House. But there is not a House version of that bill. Same with the recount. The recount bill, Chair Ann Kaiser is waiting for the Senate version, and then she'll move her bill, I suspect, and mine. So lots of moving parts. We've got a month left, and we are busy. The questions for me, and if it's okay with you, I'll ask Brian to stay on the call, and I will jump because we are talking about the Kerwin Commission, and I'm supposed to be on that Zoom.
Mr. President, maybe I can just quickly lay out the other things that I had in my legislative report, and then perhaps if Senator Kagan had any additional information on them, we could grab that out of her brain now. But by my accounting, I see 2 bills that we've been tracking that have now passed both chambers. One is the bill to have longer hours for early voting. I think there's actually a little bit of a difference between the House and the Senate bill and what those hours would be. The House is 8 to 8, the Senate is 7 to 8, so I guess it's up to that to be worked out, but that's passed both chambers, so it sounds like one way or another that's likely to occur. The other is Delegate Lukey's student and military voting bill. The main upshot of that for us directly is really just that it creates a legal requirement for us to do some outreach to a variety of different residential institutions when we're looking at polling place locations and precinct boundaries. The permanent absentee voting bill has passed the House, and then that was one of the bills that the Senate took up on Friday. There's also a couple other bills that have passed the House. One of them has to do with bus routes. Public buses that have a stop within a half a mile of an early voting site would basically need to find a way, either by adding a stop or just sort of making that extra distance to have voters be able to embark and disembark at the early voting site. There's a bill that has now passed the House to give priority to voters, allow voters to make a request for priority in voting order if they have a mobility impairment or are accompanied by a child with a disability. And there's a bill that has passed the House, not really an affirmative responsibility in our office, but we were tracking it, having to do with employers having to give employees time off to vote during the voting period on a day of their choosing, effectively, if they had to, as it stands, work a shift that covered the entirety of the voting hours. The only other bill that I have seen movement on that we were tracking was in the House. The committee has now passed their bill to designate or to increase the number of early voting locations. They've passed a bill, the risk limiting audit bill now is amended to set up a work group that would include local election officials to basically design the risk limiting audits first, require them second, after they've been designed in preparation for the 22 session, and a bill that I guess is sort of a precursor to the other bills that Senator Kagan's working on to designate that the absentee ballot would be the one to be opened when there's both an absentee and a provisional ballot that's legally sufficient. The House committee approved that, although they have not yet acted on the bills to allow ballots to be opened earlier. And that's everything that I had on my list, unless Senator Kagan has something else or has further commentary on those bills.
Thank you, Allison. Great job, great overview. A couple of quick things. I didn't mention that in the MACO bill, the Maryland Association of Counties, we did propose adding Mayo to the State Board of Elections as a non-voting member so that local boards would be represented and have a real voice, not just testify and go away, but really have a non-voting but a presence there. And I think that's critically important. You mentioned the hours of voting. That was originally in my kitchen sink bill, but I supported Senator Washington's bill. That's the 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. So all voting days would be 7 a.m. to 8 p.m. I suspect that we will stick with that. And that was the bill on the Senate side to work with the House version. You mentioned the student and veterans voting. It's a Lutke bill. In the Senate, Senator Elfrith sponsored that. I was the floor manager on that, and then he's also passed the Senate. It is a much different bill than last year's, which we killed because it was unreasonable. It is much narrowed to something much more reasonable, including no time off for students to have an excuse to skip classes or whatever. It also does not mandate that there must be polling locations on campuses. It just says, if you're going to do it on campus, like you should consult. If you're going to do it on campus, the campus has to work with you in terms of parking and security and access and all that. So that was, it passed the Senate. We were happy with it. Permanent absentee came, the Janelle Wilkins bill. In the Senate, Ben Kramer, we amended, we tweaked it, and frankly made it much narrower. So you'll want to check out the Senate version soon at some point. The vote, I'm not sure whether that's going to fly through the Senate, because especially when we're talking about 10 days of early voting, plus vote by mail, plus election day, I'm not sure whether there's going to be the will for that or not. And that's of everything you mentioned. That's kind of, I don't have anything to say on risk limiting audits. I think that was Ann Kaiser's bill, and that did not have a cross file, so we haven't heard that yet in the Senate. And ditto on this increasing the number of early voting locations. So that's that, but that's a pretty good as to where things are. So there are still a lot of moving parts, but there's a lot of this that will get done this year.
Anybody else, Anthony, Gwen? Anything else for the senator? Well, thank you for joining us.
Absolutely. Good to see you, Jim, David, Allison, Margaret, everybody stay safe. Thank you so much.
Take care.
Bye, you too.
Jim, can I go back to a question on the poll books?
Sure.
I'm wondering whether either Allison or Margaret has any information about how the cost of the poll books that the state is quoting now compares to what other states are doing. Are we getting a Cadillac plan, or are we getting kind of how does our expenditure look compared to others?
Jim or David, I believe that what I need to do is get back to you with regards to that specific issue. First of all, the reason I cannot give you a straight answer is that not all jurisdictions purchase their equipment statewide. It's unique. There's only several states that do that. So I need to work with Allison and reach out to NACO and the National Council of State Legislators to find out, what the process is in other states and other large jurisdictions when it comes to purchasing poll books and things like that.
And what I'm really asking, though, Margaret, and thank you for that, what I'm really asking is not so much about state-by-state comparisons, but more poll book by poll book comparisons. Is there a difference between what Maryland is proposing and the functionality of what Maryland is proposing compared to what other places are doing? And is the money roughly comparable to additional functionality, if there is any, or so that just to get a sense as to whether we're in the same ballpark as what other people are doing. Because if the counties are going to be paying for the cost of this, I think that the counties would want to know a little bit more about what it is that they're buying and why. And I understand it's not your decision to make. So whatever information you can get would be great.
Okay, we'll have to provide that to you at a later date.
That's fine. Thank you.
And the only thing I'll just add is, they haven't made the decision yet, right? So both the Cadillac and the Buick, or whatever those options are on the table. We'll find out presumably after the state makes its decision.
So if the bill is coming to us, finding out after they make their decision seems a little late.
Actually,
I understand the difference between the Buick and the Cadillac, or the Lexus, or the Mercedes, whatever it is. But I would think that we want to know what features we'd be buying if we buy the more expensive car.
Mr. Naaman, I just want to point out that the state board cannot, as Senator Kagan pointed out earlier, the state board cannot individually, as an agency, go out and purchase this particular item. They will have to go to the Board of Public Works. And in the past, we have the Maryland Association of Election Officials and even this county have gone before the Board of Public Works to testify in front of them with regards to certain expenditures. So you are correct. We don't want to have a done deal. There is obviously a vehicle in which we can, the local boards of elections can possibly testify to slow the process down if we see that the product that is being purchased does not meet the needs of the county. And if Senator Kagan's bill does pass, with regards to the review of the procurement process, the State Board of Elections would be reviewing this purchase because they wouldn't, the State Board staff would not be permitted to go forward with the purchase without their weighing in on it. But allow us to get further information in accordance to the rules of the state procurement process.
No, that's great. Thank you. And yeah, if you just keep us informed, that would be wonderful. Thank you very much.
Okay, Mr. President.
Alan has a question.
Al?
Yeah, back on legislation, I sent up around, I guess it was yesterday, the Senate Bill 10, introduced by Senator Waldstreicher, and it's passed the Senate. This is up in the House now. House Bill 450 is the companion bill, and this seems like a very attractive bill for us to time because basically it prohibits firearms on election sites or within 100 feet of polling places. And I'd like to make a motion that the board support Senate Bill 10 and House Bill 450.
I'll second that.
I would respectfully decline.
Jim,
Repeat that, Diane, I missed them.
I said I would respectfully decline.
me too.
Doesn't Alan get to speak to his motion?
Sure.
Oh, yeah, I didn't mean to interrupt, I'm sorry. So sorry.
We don't want to have firearms or any kinds of guns at the polls, and we want to encourage safety for our poll workers and our voters. So I thought it'd be pretty easy for this to be a bipartisan effort. The FOP supports the bill as it passed, and I think it would look good for us to be behind the Senate bill and the House bill.
We never had a problem with the gun, did we, Kevin?
Well, define what a problem is.
To my knowledge, we have not had a problem. I mean, to some extent, this is addressed by the fact you can't bring a gun on school property, and we use a lot of schools as polling places. So, but there are obviously a lot of locations that are not schools. So.
Yeah, Kevin, you just said exactly what I was going to say, which is that we already, obviously for schools, it's illegal to have a gun on school property already, on public school property already. But we have a number of polling places that aren't on public school property, and we have a number of polling places that are in private locations. Other than for law enforcement is exempted from this bill. Other than for law enforcement, I can't think of any good reason why we would want people to be coming to the polls with guns. We already can have fights break out, or discussions over signs, or, I mean, all kinds of, and we all know that stuff happens at the polls. And we also all know that we were concerned about stuff happening at the polls during 2020. And I mean, one can only imagine how that would play out if firearms are both legal and available at polling places. This strikes me as being a very measured proposal. It has a number of exceptions to make it so that it doesn't interfere with people's, law-abiding rights. It doesn't interfere with law enforcement. I'm not sure what the concern would be, but to me, it seems like Senator Wallstreicher has identified something that should be consistent with what we all want, which is, we want our polling places to be free of incident.
Alan, does the bill provide for someone who's lawfully licensed to carry it? Do you know?
Only security guards, law enforcement, the people who have a gun for their business are exempted. Law enforcement officers, the regular course of their business, off-duty law enforcement officers, if they display their badge or credentials, they can do it.
It doesn't say your question, Jim. It doesn't say whether somebody has permit can bring it doesn't say that.
No, the only people who can do it would be law enforcement or security guards who need the weapon.
What about a woman who's been stalked by her boyfriend who's already raped her?
She shouldn't. She ought to vote by absentee ballot.
Oh, come on.
Oh, come on.
She shouldn't want to bring a gun to the polls.
Well, some people have it on them all the time, lawfully.
Well,
I'm perfectly fine with people who have gone through the process and have a legal concealed carry permit to bring it. In fact, I'm comforted by the fact that people who know how to handle a firearm might be there. I don't always see police at the polls.
the current law, election law, section 16-903, already prohibits guns. What this does, it expands it to define, it includes firearms, not just guns, your handguns, rifles, shotguns. So it broadens out to make sure that firearms to be brought to the polling place, and it makes it, there's a penalty if you do that.
Right, so it specifically prohibits lawful concealed carry arms at the polling place. In other words, if you carry one on you all the time because of, as Jim said, exigent circumstances and maybe immediate circumstances, it would prevent you from carrying it as you are lawfully licensed to do. So I just think it is a bridge too far, and I certainly cannot support it.
What about, Alan, like a retired police officer?
Well, why does a retired police officer need to carry a gun to the polls?
Because he arrested someone who's doing 25 to life for murder, and his family doesn't like him. I mean, retired officers, they've done yeoman's work in arresting bad people.
Right.
An overriding concern. I thought when we began the discussion of legislation, we weren't going to take positions on issues that are controversial.
Well, I didn't think it was controversial, but evidently I was wrong.
I just thought we weren't going to, get involved in issues that, have varying degrees of support.
It may have negative effect. If you tell people not to do, they do. Like we had a case, the woman didn't want to have a face mask. So,
I can keep an eye on it, Alan. I can track it like I've been tracking the others. I did see your email last night, and I did not add it to my list because, quite frankly, I had not done the research on it. I did see the language, striking gun, adding firearm, but I was not familiar with the impact in terms of what this bill does in relationship to existing laws. So I mean, I can check with Kevin, make sure that I understand that better and add it to the bills that we're just keeping an eye on.
Yeah, the one to House Bill 450, that's the companion bill. It's passed the Senate already, but the companion bill is House Bill 450. And according to the website, there was a hearing February 2 on the House bill. I don't see any further action beyond that point. The Ways and Means Committee has it.
I just want to say that I personally am concerned about the problem that Senator Wallstreicher is trying to address here. I think that there is a significant possibility for voter intimidation anytime we're suggesting that there's going to be firearms at the polls from someone other than law enforcement, and sometimes even when it is law enforcement. I, like Alan, am a little surprised that this is controversial, but obviously, people have their own views. Like Kevin said, a good portion of it is already the case in terms of, school property. And in fact, the exceptions that Senator Wallstreicher has in his bill, I don't know if they exist on school property. I'm sure the police can come on school property, but I don't know about others. Anyway, that's all I have to say.
We'll call the question.
Yeah, I'm going to abstain, so any further comment? Okay, all those in favor of Alan's motion, say aye.
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 All those against, say aye.
Aye. Or nay, whatever.
Yay, yeah.
Yeah, I abstain.
Okay, 2-2.
Okay. All right, are we done with legislation, Margaret?
Yes, we are. Just voter registration.
Yeah, you skipped over that.
Yes, we did. Voter registration is continuing to process any backlogs, as well as doing the quality control in terms of the validation of the voter records in accordance to state board regulations. With regards to the State Board of Elections, we did talk about it already. The poll book RFP is moving forward, and as soon as we get an update, I will share it with the board members. And website update, the website was updated, and the board information is in the center panel. I'm sorry, it's right below the center panel. Are there any other?
And information about the 2022 election. We
Yeah.
wanted that updated too.
It's there.
It's there.
Yes. Any comments on that?
Thank you. I think it's a vast improvement, and I appreciate the fact that it happened so quickly after our last board meeting. Thank you.
Okay.
Kevin, your report?
Sure, thank you. Last month I told you that the board was working with the state board on a FOIA request by Gregory Cole to go ahead and get video of all the locations of the drop boxes in Montgomery County from the 2020 general election. We provided an estimate regarding how much it would cost just for Montgomery County alone, and that was, I think, close to $9,600. That does not include Montgomery County Public Schools, which would be significantly more expensive for two reasons. One is because of the number of locations, and two, the requirement to comply with FERPA on the privacy of students. Even though most schools didn't have any students, they would still need to review the video. So we're waiting on that. The response was basically he was interested in getting video footage from the Maryland Kraisner Recreation Center. And we're now working to go ahead and get a cost estimate just for that location. And once we have that, if it's acceptable and he's willing to pay it, then obviously we'll turn over the video once it's been reviewed by Montgomery County.
Does he just want Montgomery County or the whole 8th district?
To my knowledge, his request to the state board was just to Montgomery County.
But now he wants just the prisoner center, which is not in the 8th district.
He has said, basically, let's start with the prisoner center. How much would that cost? Or words to that effect.
Okay.
So, that's all I have to report.
Okay.
Okay.
Thanks, Kevin.
Jim, this is Elise. Can we just go back to the director's report for a minute? Margaret, is it possible for you to post your report when the agenda goes out on the website?
We've never done
Well, it's a changing document.
Margaret,
We
you,
did- Are we, am I unmuted?
Oh, sorry.
can't hear Margaret.
Sorry.
This is an ever-changing document. We could certainly post,
It's provided in advance?
it's provided in the advance packet to the board, but this changes up until moments before based on the information that I'm receiving from various aspects of the community that impacts the Board of Elections.
Okay.
So the answer is,
Well, I'm not inclined to because there isn't, because it changes all the time.
Don't we have other things that change as well?
Not like this changes.
It is provided before the board meeting to the board, either
It
in the
is
advance
provided to the
packet or
board.
the Thursday before the meeting.
Can the version that's provided to the board be provided to the public?
Yes, we will provide the version that I provide to the board on Thursday night for the public.
Even though it changes
Thank
even
you.
board meeting day.
okay. Thank you,
No,
Margaret.
It will
Thank you,
change.
Margaret.
It will
Right.
change between Thursday and the time we are talking.
something is better than nothing. Thank you.
Okay. The next thing would be the presidential election report on information technology. A summary report was sent to you in the advance packet. Janet is going to present her PowerPoint, and we ask that all questions be held to the end of the presentation.
Okay.
I'm waiting for Lisa to share the screen.
One moment, please.
Is that the right one?
I hope so.
Okay, you can go to the next slide. Okay, IT is responsible for doing the polling room layouts. The next one.
Can everyone hear you? Can everyone
Can
hear?
y'all hear
okay?
me?
Okay, maybe not.
Yes.
Oh.
Yeah.
Yes.
Okay. We couldn't see your faces, so I was a little nervous. And while we were doing the poll room layouts this election, we had two major issues we were dealing with. One was the Cradle Point router rollout, and the other was the pandemic, of course. And because of the Cradle Point router, we had to locate the strongest wireless signal position in the room, and that's where a check-in was. So a lot of these layouts had to be redone. And then I also had to work with the director on the allocations. Some rooms didn't have enough electrical outlets to support the equipment, or we had space limitations. And then we had to work with the Office of Emergency Service and Homeland Security and the Montgomery County Department of Health to ensure we met the COVID guidelines. And we met with them and went over several of the layouts to make sure we were in their guidelines. And then they also provided us the number of voters that could be in the room. So we had to subtract the number of judges and say how many voters could be in the room. And this is just showing you a sample layout and how sometimes we had to be creative. Like at Silver Spring, we had to move check-in outside of the room because we knew we needed to keep that amount of equipment there. And then go to the next one. And then move provisional to another room. And the same thing we did with like Praisner. We used 3 different rooms because the rooms were available. Okay, moving on to logic and accuracy. These are the steps that we do to prepare for our logic and accuracy. The most important one here is that we scan the seals in and tamper tapes to establish the security protocols. And then we create, go back. We create the integrity reports, and we pre-populate the LNA paperwork so that it'll save us some time. And sometimes we cannot read the guy's handwriting, so it's easier if we pre-populate their work. Then under create media, that's when we load the election to the memory sticks for the BMDs and scanners, and to the compact flash cards for the poll books. And then on logic and accuracy, that's where we actually perform the work. Those 2 slides are prep. The third arrow is where we actually perform the work. And what's critical here is anybody that touches the equipment, they have to have a background check, and this includes fingerprinting. And then we train the staff on all the procedures, and we perform LNA. We complete the LNA paperwork, and we verify the data on the integrity report during this process. And the final step is we conduct the public demonstration to show the public what we do to prepare the equipment. Okay, and this is just showing the early voting equipment that was deployed. As you can see, we added 3 scanners to the executive office building, I think on the 2nd or 3rd day of early voting. And this is what was sent out on election day. And I will explain why that 1 is in red. We originally allocated 20 BMDs to this location. We could only fit 8. So the 3 that went to EOB during early voting, that was part of the extra 12. But also during early voting, we had 9, we replaced 9 BMDs, so those allocated to this site went to early voting. And you'll see how that impacted something later. Keep going. Okay, and this is the actual scanning unit opening integrity report. And this is what we pre-populate and we verify as they're going through doing the machines.
And the election judges verified.
And the election judges verified the night when they set up the equipment. But during the LNA process, if we break a seal, if we have to redo something, the IT tech is supposed to cross out the number and put the new number in red so that we can update the paperwork. Or if they have to change out the equipment, they cross it out and put it in red so that we can pick it up and correct the paperwork before we send it out. Go ahead. And that's just the closing report for the scanners. Go to the next one. Okay, and this is the scanner integrity report, the 2 I just showed you. And it shows every seal that we put on. It was 292 scanners, so it's 292 occurrences of it. And how many, where it says issues, that's how many serial numbers, lid numbers, or whatever was incorrect. Because during LNA, somebody corrected the LNA paperwork, but failed to correct the integrity report. And it's the same thing for the closing report. Okay, so, and this is the BMD integrity report. The same thing, we pre-populated. It's the poll book integrity report. Everything's pre-populated when we're doing LNA. In the BMD integrity report, this is why I highlighted the 1 in red. We prepped 563 BMDs, but we only sent out 554. So on my summary report that I sent you, that changed some of the numbers. Instead of an accuracy rate of 98.49 is what I gave you on my summary report, it's really 98.46, and it's only 1,108 items. because I forgot that we did not send out those for election day because we couldn't fit them in the room. And then the poll book integrity report, you can see the accuracy rates there. And in my summary report, I mentioned that doing precinct level reporting increased our workload. So this is just a comparison to the 2018 primary election, only the early voting equipment. That's where we had the most ballot styles. It was 76 ballot styles. That was the most we ever had. For this election, we had 255. So prep time for the BMD went from, at the max, 45 minutes up to 2 hours, each machine. And for the scanner, you can see it increased it a lot again. And that's an actual picture of the actual test deck that we had to run through the scanners. Okay, early voting site set up. The IT staff goes around and we set up all the early voting sites. We did it from October 20th through the 22nd. And while we're setting up, we have to retest the wireless signal with SBE to make sure it's still a good signal. And then it took 2 additional days. Normally we can do it in 3 days, but this time it took 2 additional days because we did not get the database for the poll books until that Thursday, and we had to spend Thursday and Friday doing the poll books and then go out Saturday and Sunday and to every site, early voting site again, and set up the poll books. Okay, the call center is also an IT responsibility, and this is just showing you the call breakdowns. We had 605 calls during early voting. And as you can see, the ballot marking device was pretty high, and that was because everyone was calling asking for additional ballot marking devices the first and second day because it was so busy. And we got a lot of calls about, can the BMD be switched, the regular BMD be switched to a provisional, which the answer was no. And then we had a lot of calls on the e-poll book because they were having connection issues or was freezing up. And then the most procedural questions we got from the judges were about SDR, same-day registration, and provisional. And those were like the highlights. Okay, you can go to the next. Okay, and this is the early voting wait time. Every wait time that's shown in red indicates that it was 30 minutes or more, and this is the first day. As you can see, the EOB was busy from opening to close. Most of the sites started to die down after noon. They still had wait times, but they went down. But EOB stayed steady. This is day 2. You can see EOB was still busy. And I think it was also due to the room size, and Wednesday you'll see it changed a little bit. And Damascus stayed busy also. This
Day 4.
Okay, this is, I think, the day we went and we changed EOB that night. And we moved the check-in out in the hall. So their wait time went down. Day 5, everybody's wait time went down. Day 6 and 7, there was no wait time. And then on day 8, it increased back up at the very end again at EOB and Boer Park. Okay, and the election day call breakdown, we had 190 calls. The ballot marking device, they weren't asking for extras, but it was a lot of jamming. The poll book was a lot of freezing. And the judges and procedural questions, again, was provisional. And this is the election day wait times. You can see Silver Spring had times greater than 30 minutes. I think Clarksburg had 30 minutes at the 9 o'clock hour. And Poolesville had 30 minutes at the opening. And then Gaithersburg High School had some high times in the middle of the day, but not more than 30. Okay, and this is election night reporting in the canvas. We couldn't use the regional uplight upload sites because of precinct level reporting, but we did provide our results for early voting and vote by mail 1 to SBE before 8 p.m. But we did have the memory sticks in-house. 95% of them received by 11 p.m., 99 by 11:30, and we had one precinct that we didn't get till midnight. And we couldn't do the tabulation that night due to precinct level reporting, and SBE did release to the media and LBE's a statement explaining why the results would not be released. Okay, and this is just showing you during the canvas how many ballots we scanned in 19 days of scanning. Any questions?
Thank you, Janet, that was excellent.
Alan got a question.
I think Alan has a question.
Alan?
Alan's first.
Alan, you're
You're muted.
Alan, you're muted.
Got it. Okay, thank you. Yeah, excellent presentation. Can we get a copy of that PowerPoint?
Yes.
Posted.
It's
Okay.
The draft is posted, but the original, I made a few changes today, and we'll post that to this evening.
Secondly, can you explain why there were errors, why it wasn't 100% correct? I don't understand what the errors were.
Errors with the integrity reports?
Yeah.
During L&A, if we break a seal and have to change it, remember everything's pre-populated, we put it in a little baggie and says all of this goes to this equipment. If somebody breaks a seal or the BMD or the scanner doesn't pass L&A and we got to switch it out, and the IT tech fails to update the paperwork with the updated changes, we don't know that they changed it out. Because I'm just looking at the paperwork and going, okay, this is a correction, this is a correction. They normally correct their L&A paperwork, but they forget the integrity report.
Thank you.
Anyone else have anything
David had a
for,
question. David did.
Janet?
I do.
David?
Thank you. I agree, an excellent report, thank you. I also want to compliment you, Janet and company, for the adjustment made at the executive office building, because it's very clear from your data that what you did made a huge difference in a difficult situation. Thank you for making that adjustment. A couple of questions. You commented about the use of additional rooms at Silver Spring and Praisner, which I know worked really well and kind of facilitated getting voters in and out. Is that something that could be replicated elsewhere?
Yes, if they allow us the rooms, yes.
And how can we help to make that happen? Because I would think that we would want to have as much room as necessary all over the county, not favoring any one area over another. Obviously, there are more voters in some places than others, but I think ideally we would want to have as much space as can be spared.
That, with regards to the request for additional rooms or real estate at the various locations where there's voting occurring, that will be up to Chris and her operations team. Now, I am going to point out that the election in 2022 is on June 28th, after the schools get out and there's summer camp. And most of our early voting centers are in recreation sites. And in the last election, there was nothing going on. And there might be competition between the Board of Elections requirements and summer camp, and the need to try to get those two events to coexist. We have contacted the Department of Recreation with regards to our concerns and have reserved the proposed date as included in the current proposal of legislation, and we're going to try to work it out. But right now, I can't give you a solid answer, but the Recreation Department is aware that we are coveting their summer camp space.
Well, and given that that is a year and a quarter from now, I would hope that we could reach some kind of accommodation in order to accomplish that. I mean, we have plenty of time to plan.
That's why I already reached out to the Recreation Director, David.
Okay.
And
well,
so has Chris.
Anything that the board can do to help, you know, we would. I think it would be something that would be good for the voters and for the people running the election.
I'm sure the county executive will consider that.
Okay. My next question, Janet, you said that there was a relationship between precinct reporting and the logic and accuracy test that I didn't quite understand. Can you, I think it was between the logic and accuracy test. Can you tell me about, I'm sorry, there's a really bad echo. What is the effect of precinct reporting on what you do? Let's just start with that.
She's got to unmute them. No. Because if you have more ballot styles, your test deck is going to be bigger. So we had 76 ballot styles. Our test deck was only 1,100 pages. We had 255 ballot styles. Our test deck was over 2,000 pages.
So you're saying that it takes that much longer to do the testing for each one?
Yes.
For each piece of equipment.
And you also got to, because you have 255 ballot styles, you got to vote 255 ballot styles on each BMD to make sure it's reading every ballot correctly.
I see.
And I'll just jump in to add, when Janet says more than 2,000 ballot styles for 250 precincts, then for the gubernatorial primary, triple that.
Additionally, when you're ballot proofing, we also have to test every ballot, every name on the ballot. So that when you're working on the ballot marking device, we have to mark slot 1, slot 2, slot 3, slot 4 to make sure that the ballot marking device is recording each name as it's printed out. So that also adds to the proofing process. And then you have to do, for us in the ballot proofing process, you also have to do it in English and Spanish.
Oh, right. If there's required precinct results like there was this time, would ballot styles be the way to accomplish that, or are there any alternatives? I know that there's some alternatives that might be less desirable, but is there anything that would be better?
No, it's ballot styles.
Well, our preference would be ballot styles, but I believe that the legislature and the state board have made the decision that it will be precinct. Everything will be reported out by precinct.
Right. Now, why does the precinct level reporting affect the use of regional centers to drop off the information?
Because you have every precinct on the memory stick, normally you don't have every precinct. So when you're uploading, it takes like 10 seconds. But because you have every precinct on there, even if there's no vote, it'll tie up the upload, and that locks up the other person trying to upload. And we didn't know about it until the state called us and was like, you can't do it. You're going to lock every single laptop up when you're trying to upload.
I see. So it's an unintended consequence of precinct reporting that the regional collection can't happen as a result.
Yes, yes.
Okay, last question. I saw what you said about the room at the Marriott Bethesda North and the number of B&Bs, and I had the chance to see that room. It's obviously a very big facility. The room was not so large. And I'm wondering if there's a possibility in the future, if that spot is used, to use a larger room.
That's a Margaret question.
That would be something that we would have to negotiate with the Marriott Conference Center. The dynamics of space will be considerably different. The Marriott Conference Center was, for all extents and purposes, closed down, and we may be competing with actual conferences in June and October of 2022. But you know, if this was the first time we had an opportunity to utilize the space, and we certainly could explore using a larger space if Marriott and the county agree to provide the space to the Board of Elections.
Well, and obviously, I'm hoping the dynamics are different for 22, given the current pandemic, et cetera. But I wasn't suggesting the Marriott as a location for early voting. I was thinking of it more as an election day location, but you make a good point. We may not need as much space if it's a traditional election day, as opposed to what we had this time. So that's all I have. Thank you.
Mr. President, should we go on to new business?
Yes, Janet, thank you again, excellent.
Okay, I just wanted
Yeah,
to.
sure, go ahead, Margaret.
Okay.
You said you had an edit
Yeah,
on them.
I did want to add drop boxes. Several pieces of legislation have identified that we would be utilizing, the boards of elections would be utilizing drop boxes. We were able to successfully locate drop boxes at the high schools in 2020. That may not be quite so easy in 2022. So at this point, and I reached out to our board attorney, who also was talking with the state board because of the privacy issues surrounding the students. So one of the things that we are reaching out to the county is the possibility of utilizing drop boxes at the libraries and other types of commonly used county locations. So I just wanted you to be aware that this is a kind of a new twist with regards to drop boxes. If the legislation passes that requires drop boxes to be utilized in the future, which there's a strong probability that will happen.
Can I ask a question of Kevin about that?
Sure.
Kevin, is the suggestion being made that FERPA prevents it from being used at all?
No. Just the issue was raised, and we don't know what the answer will be, which is obviously the schools were not being occupied. And I'm not so sure that the school system is going to be, I mean, they're required to allow us to use the schools on election day. If we start putting drop boxes out 30 days ahead of time, particularly given where they're located, I can see them viewing them as being very disruptive in October into November. And I just raised the issue with the state board, had they considered it, and they said, well, it's a valid point. Have you all considered other locations like libraries? So Margaret and I talked about it and said, I suggested, why don't you at least review that as a possibility? And we need to, if it passes, we're going to start discussions with Montgomery County Public Schools. Certainly it's not prohibited by FERPA, but, you know, it's not just FERPA, it's, you know, people parking their cars where teachers and students park. parking their cars where buses are located, having adults roaming around on school grounds. You know, and I don't know what the answer is, but if I were an educator, I would have some reservations that didn't exist in 2020, in 2022, and I think those are, you know, legitimate things for everyone to consider. And you know, if it's going to be problematic for us to put drop boxes at every high school, it may be.
And then, of course, there are many fewer libraries than there are schools. So we have to think about, it raises a number of issues for sure.
Yeah, and of course, you know, for voters to drop off their ballot during the day at a high school, there's virtually no parking. So, just something to think about as, you know, how we're going to use these drop boxes in the future, because as Allison has pointed out, there seems to be significant consensus in Annapolis that they were very popular in 2020 and that they're going to be used in an enhanced fashion in 2022.
And I gather, though, that a lot of them were at schools in 2020. I mean, not just in Montgomery County, but elsewhere. I know the state board said that they wanted, they suggested the schools as sites on election day.
Right.
Anyway, it does raise some interesting questions. Thank you.
Margaret, did you have anything else in new business?
No, sir. No.
Are there any other new business issues that someone wants to discuss?
Yes, Jim.
Sure.
First item, I want to congratulate our staff again for their award from the Election Assistance Commission for the texting system, which proved to be almost as popular as drop boxes with our voters. As I indicated in an email to the board and staff this morning, I also saw when I was on the Election Assistance Commission's website that Anne Arundel County Board of Elections received an award relating to cybersecurity that was really quite intriguing in a number of ways. It appeared to be a training module for election judges and others for how to address cybersecurity issues. And I wanted to request that we ask Mr. Garais from the Anne Arundel County Board to speak with us next month and tell us about his program, so that we can see what it is that they've been doing.
Yeah, good idea.
Yes.
Okay.
David.
I think it sounds like a great idea. Sorry, I was muted.
David didn't do it, the college did it.
Okay. Okay.
Put that as an action item, yes.
Yeah.
Okay, excellent, thank you. Okay, so the second new business item I have is a motion, and it relates to something that the board discussed more generally in October of 2018. I, at that point, introduced a number of proposals to encourage transparency in our work. Today I have a motion to clarify our position on one of those items that we appeared to agree to at the time, and the minutes say that Jim said he had no problem with it, but I just wanted us to be on the record. So my motion is as follows. I move that the board reaffirm its policy that all letters or emails and attachments addressed to the board president, or all letters or emails addressed to elections@montgomerycountymd.gov that are shared with the board president will be copied to all board members within 24 hours, unless the board president provides an explanation to the board secretary for why a particular communication should not be shared. And I further move that any items deemed to be confidential in nature shall be marked as such when distributed to board members and may not be disclosed by board members or staff to others.
I second.
And what specifics are you talking about? You're saying, well, what's this all about? You saying that I got something that I didn't share with the board?
I'm saying that there was one instance, I believe it was by accident.
Tell me about it, tell us about it.
Okay.
Don't give us a generic, what are you talking about?
No,
Usually the president share everything, that's why.
Okay, well, let me explain, and it is exactly to avoid misunderstanding that I am proposing this. What I'm explaining is that Kevin referred earlier to a FOIA request that we received from a former candidate for office. It began as a complaint when he was an active candidate for office about his opponent. In that circumstance, while the election is going on, while board members are out and about, going out to polling places, it is obviously exceedingly important for us to know what is going on. At the same time, it is also important that unsubstantiated allegations, and we all know that politics is full of unsubstantiated allegations on all sides. It's also important that those unsubstantiated allegations are not broadly shared. So what I am suggesting is that when there is a complaint of that kind, where a candidate or a party or a campaign is complaining about another one, that would, for the benefit of all board members, be shared with all board members. And the reason for that is twofold. Number one, we're all in this together.
Are we, David?
Yeah, we are.
I don't think so a lot. What are you talking about? You're saying I got something that you didn't get? What are you talking about?
I am saying I got something that you got something I didn't get. I'm not accusing you of anything.
When and what? I don't know what Kevin, didn't you send this all out there? I don't even know what you're talking about.
Okay, so what happened was...
Yeah, tell me.
Okay, on October the 31st, during early voting, there was a complaint filed by a candidate about another candidate. Okay? Whether the complaint had any merit or not is not the issue here at all.
What was the complaint, David?
This was a complaint about electioneering. It was a suggestion that someone was violating the electioneering rules. So it was precisely something that board members are often asked to address when they go out making their rounds. And what I'm...
David Damon?
Oh, she's on wait.
What?
So, what I'm attempting to address is as follows. When somebody raises that kind of a complaint, the last thing that we want the public to believe is that it is not being handled in a bipartisan way by the board. This is particularly true for a general election. If it's a complaint, think of it if a candidate on one side of the aisle tells a board member on the same side of the aisle and no one else hears, it has an appearance problem, not a reality problem, an appearance problem that's that looks like not everyone is being treated the same. What I'm suggesting is that if that happens, when somebody makes a complaint like that, in this case about electioneering, I'm not suggesting that the complaint is valid. I'm not suggesting that the complaint is invalid. I'm suggesting that it's something that board members should know, because the last thing we would want is for someone in that circumstance to call a press conference the next day and talk about how they already communicated with one side of the board and not the entire board about a complaint. Because we know that we have a good process for following up on complaints, and that we look at whether they are valid or not, and we've done that for many years. But it should be a process that includes everyone.
Didn't the board see a picture of the congressional candidate and where he was standing? Didn't we talk about that at the meeting?
Not at the time.
I thought we all saw that, we talked about where.
We saw it within the last month. We saw it, I saw it for the first time today or yesterday, but we were told about it within the last month. I do not believe we were told about it in October or November. And the complaint was originally made in October.
It's a picture of the signs where you put an election here, and we were all talking about it. And Kevin said that the candidate was in an appropriate place.
You are correct about your facts. I don't think you're correct about the timing. To my knowledge, unless there's a board meeting that I missed, but I don't think there is, we were never given a copy of that photograph until very recently. And this complaint was made while the election was still ongoing. And that is my point. My point is that under those circumstances, I mean, again, it should already be our policy that when things come to the board, they go to everybody. But what I'm suggesting is that, there may be occasions when we get things that are confidential. Under the bylaws, we are required to keep confidential things confidential. We also have a fiduciary duty to the board that goes ahead of everything else. So in other words, we can be trusted with confidential items. We do not have to be shielded from things, of that nature. But
my recollection is that Kevin advised the board that there was no violation.
Last month, I believe.
Well, I don't remember. Let me say this. This was something that was sent to the Montgomery County Board of Elections general mailbox. At least for my part, I will certainly do a better job to make sure that everyone is given a copy of it. It was turned over to the state board right away, so I will assume responsibility for it not being fully disseminated.
Well, didn't you also find, Kevin, that there was no violation? My recollection.
I was shown the photograph, and that was certainly my opinion, yes.
But Jim, that is in a way not the point, because if I were wanting to criticize the board, and I don't have a criticism on this point, but certainly there's a possibility that could happen. The fact that a candidate files a complaint, says that he wants it sent to you, and he's from your political party.
I don't remember this. Kevin, did I get an email about this?
You got, something was sent to the general mailbox, it got forwarded to you, and you just sent it to me, FYI.
Okay, and you sent it to the state?
The state was already involved because he was complaining to the state as well.
Oh, I see.
So it was taken care of it?
And the House of Representatives.
No?
What I'm saying is that I'm not arguing with how the allegation was taken care of. I'm arguing with the extent to which board members were not informed. And in that circumstance, all board members should be informed. Try and imagine it if the shoe was on the other foot. And if someone on our side was filing a complaint, and you didn't hear about it, and you thought it was invalid, and then maybe you go to the polls the next day and somebody starts bending your ear about it, and you know nothing about it, and you're a member of the Board of Elections, and they expect you to know about it because of what it involves.
David, is it possible because of all the promotion, in October, in November, all the things going on, somebody maybe just forgot or acted on it? Yes, it's completely possible. That's why I'm suggesting this prospectively. I think remember the whole situation. You can say my side.
Naheem, I did not try to relitigate what happened in October. I was asked to explain what brought me to make this proposal, and I did. I honestly don't believe that it was done intentionally. I believe it, but I do believe that it should have been shared with us, and I do believe that we're pretty much already on record that things like this should be shared with us, and I think it's in the board's interest when a complaint like this happens, particularly in a general election, that members of both parties, the entire board, in my opinion, the entire board, should get it so that then there's no question as to how it was handled. And no one can say, oh, well, they did that in order to, avoid this or do that or whatever. I mean, because we are all members of the board. We're all, we're all charged with dealing with matters of this kind. We all go to polling places and are asked to deal with electioneering issues. And if we had gone to the polls the next day and the same thing had happened over again, we would have had no idea, that any of that was happening. Now, I was at polling places during that weekend. I never saw anything like this. But I talked to an awful lot of people that weekend. No one brought this up, but they easily could have. And that is the goal of what I'm trying to address here. I'm just trying to make sure that all of us are informed when things of this nature are taking place. And no, I'm not suggesting that anyone did anything intentionally. I'm not suggesting that anything was done under the table. I'm just suggesting that we should have a policy so that in the future, these things are done as a matter of course.
Sounds like the legislator sent us an email requesting some information. Should we share it with the rest of the board?
I'm sorry, what's your question, Naheed?
My question was, how about one of the legislator or somebody request some kind of information from us? Should we send it to everybody? He said, here, people see what this legislator or this senator or this delegate need this information. Should we send it to everybody?
What I'm addressing are official communications.
No, I'm not saying that.
I'm answering you. I'm saying that what I'm addressing are official communications to the board that are to the entire board. In this instance, the communication was essentially a complaint relating to the election to the board. And what you are describing, there definitely are a number of instances where I think it would be appropriate to share. But it's not in the same category as when someone is filing a complaint.
Yeah, one little issue.
Okay, it's noted. I mean, Kevin followed and the state board was aware of it. I'm sure they taking care of it, right? Kevin?
He's done
The state board,
Yeah, I mean, the issue's been resolved, but I will make sure that everyone gets a copy moving forward. I assume responsibility for that.
yeah. Okay.
It's just in the days up to the election, there's just, that general mailbox is inundated with mail. That, forward this to this person, forward it to this person, and for whatever reason, I didn't think to go ahead and forward it to everyone. Well, it was being handled by the state, so I didn't think much of it, quite frankly.
Does the board have objection to saying that it's the policy of the board to forward such things to the entire board? As Kevin just suggested.
Well, it kind of sounded to me like that is the policy.
Well,
I'm confused about what's going on.
Well, I am as well, because I thought I was asking for a reaffirmation of a policy, and apparently that's quite controversial. The minutes of October 2018 do not reflect that the board took a vote, does not reflect a final policy on this subject. If we can have something in the minutes that says that that's the board's policy, I'm happy.
You're never happy. You accuse us of things, You never have.
No, that is not.
No, it is true. Yes, it's the policy. I'll second your motion. Yes, it's our policy. But let's take a vote. I second Naaman's policy. Let's take a vote. All those in favor of David's motion and my second, say aye. Aye.
Aye. Aye.
Anyone opposed? Unanimous.
Okay, thank you. Let's go on.
And David, I do take it as a personal attack.
As a matter of fact, you
It's
don't.
not.
It is.
not.
Let me from my
No, it's not.
Your
experience,
fingerprints are all over this.
Jim, let me tell you from my
Jim,
experience.
there's no need for my fingerprints. I made the motion.
And you
Okay?
won. You
I didn't-
won.
I didn't hide anything. I don't understand what you're talking about. I really don't. I really don't.
Just you're giving a speech. We don't need speeches. And accusations.
No accusation.
Okay, let's go on. Next.
All right,
The minutes,
Marvin, let's action item.
the approval of the
Action items,
minutes.
action
Is there
items.
any action items? Not at this time.
Yes, there's action items.
Which action items?
So action items I have, Director Margaret Jurgensen will be forwarding information regarding the
Oh, the county executive.
county executive's FY22 budget when information is provided. We have that Mr. Naaman has requested information regarding the EPB spending and the comparable to other jurisdictions. Then I have Ms. McLaughlin will provide, will keep an eye on Senate Bill 10 and House Bill 450 and provide any updates to the board. The director's report will be put on the website Thursday before the board meeting, knowing that it will be changed, potentially changed. And we have that the PowerPoint will be posted to the website. Information on the drop boxes will be provided upon more information provided for the future drop boxes.
At some point this summer.
Okay, so just future. Okay. And this current motion of a policy that's implemented moving forward. Alan?
The only other thing that I have, Lisa, is inviting David Garris from Anne Arundel County.
Oh, yeah, sorry, yep.
That's it.
Oh, that's what I had under the drop boxes, sorry, yeah.
Thank you, Lisa.
Okay, so we're gonna go to approval of minutes.
Yeah, I move we approve the minutes of July the 20th. With the amendment.
Second.
All those in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Aye.